ワン四日市が来ました。エントリーナンバー1番サバトでオリジナルブラックファイヤー。
早くしゅ行くぜー速攻ブラックファイヤー
Alright, you just heard Sabbat. Now, today's guest. I got somebody really big for you guys today. I got Nader Sadek. Now Nader is in Cairo, Egypt. So this guy's been around. Nader, thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Now, Cairo, we were talking earlier. You said you were living in New York for a while, and then are you originally from Egypt?
Yeah, I was born here in Cairo, and I actually lived here until I was 20.
And then you moved to New York?
No, I actually moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota for 4 years because I went to college there, and then I moved back to Cairo for a year, and then I moved to New York. And I lived in New York for 10 years, and then just last year I decided to come back to Egypt.
You've been around.
Yeah.
How did you get adjusted to the cold of Minneapolis?
It wasn't easy, man. I just had to keep wearing layers, and just stay indoors. I mean, there were days where even my roommates who were from Minneapolis told me, you can't go out today. It's like it's too cold. Like nobody's supposed to leave their apartment today.
That's nuts, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, like I had seen snow before because I had visited the States in the winter a couple of times before. But man, like when it's like, when it's just so much, when it's just like nonstop snowing, like 3 days in a row, it's just like insane. It's just
Wow.
I just wonder how the hell people even bother living here because it's crazy, and it's like almost 6 months out of the year it's fucking cold.
So I'm gonna ask you some questions about what you've been doing in the metal scene and all that, but I want to get a little bit back into the music for a second here. So
okay,
one of the bands you chose for your playlist was Ritual Carnage.
Yeah, that was like when I actually moved to Minneapolis, and I had lived in Egypt before where there's no access to CDs at all. I mean, I would only get CDs whenever I would visit some family in the States. That's, then I'd have to look up where metal stores that carry metal. And so anyway, when I moved to Minneapolis, there was a store there owned by the singer of Anal Blast.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Don Decker. And he had a store called Nightfall, I think. And I would just go there and I would just spend hours like browsing through CDs, and like he would play me stuff, and came across the Ritual Carnage, and I liked the cover. I had no idea they were Japanese or had Japanese members, but he played them to me, and I thought they were awesome. They had this like, it was death metal, but it had that like thrash beat to it too, and I just dug it, so I bought it, and I think it's awesome. It's like one of my favorite CDs.
All right, so we're gonna play Ritual Carnage, Awaiting the Kill, and then we're gonna go into Intestine, Baalism, Banquet in the Darkness. Intestine, Baalism. I mean, you're on the other side of the world. Why'd you choose that one?
Well, again, like the name actually, I thought was pretty unique, and so I checked them out. And sometimes it's just like a little too melodic for my taste, but the vocals are sick, and I mean, like usually, I think they kind of come across as like melodic death metal, but I don't know, it's just like it just felt tight, I think it's still sick.
All right, well there you go. You heard it from the man himself. We're gonna go into some Ritual Carnage, Awaiting the Kill, and Intestinal Baalism, Banquet in the Darkness.
is your fate. The ravenous demon will seek to take the heart, you will tremble with fear. Those who withhold are paralyzed and torture, your punishment will persevere. For generations she has lived, never so sick and drained. Of a sick and sacrifice, involved in the act of Christ. Like an empty world of eyes, second fear to the light. The bloody burning seconds to me to the very end. Howling in the darkness, scream, echo through the night. Beast lurking in the shadows, death summon, awaiting the kill. Some of the night is burning on the skin. The night of from non-repentance of saint. When vacancy is hunting for eternity was slain. All that's sacred, all that's holy, crush forever, they shall never end.
right, so you just heard Ritual Carnage, Awaiting the Kill, and Intestinal Baalism, Banquet in the Darkness. We're back with Nader Sadek. Nader, what
Yo.
you played with a lot of famous people. You played with Glenn Benton, Attila Cesar, Steve Tucker. How did you get involved with these people?
It's really different every time, man. I just, in the beginning, it was, I did an art exhibition,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to have like a soundtrack to it. And the art exhibition, the concept that occupied it had something to do with death metal or death metal culture. And I thought it'd be cool to use that, but then I didn't want to just use a Morbid Angel song.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem sincere. It just, it would have made sense to do that had I not been able to find anyone. But I just thought, I'd just Google someone's name and, just hope to find any link to either their record label or themselves. And this was like 2005 that I started looking for people. And, back then, like, Facebook really wasn't,
Right.
I mean, but I think it was like, there wasn't really anyone using it yet,
Yeah.
I think it was like around 2009 that Facebook really started to pick up with the metal community and like, people in general. It's like, but anyway, this was like, yeah, I'm just trying to say that I'm like so old school, I did this shit before Facebook.
Yeah.
But, no, I just Googled their name, you know what I mean? And I mean, that's what happened with Steve. And then I had also gotten in touch with Mike Smith from Suffocation, but it was a little too difficult because just we couldn't, the timing was just like, Steve didn't have Morbid Angel, but Mike was still in Suffocation. So people in bands, they're just always busy with touring and writing and stuff. So that didn't work out. But actually, Emperor had just quit, and Steve actually knew someone in Emperor, so he asked them if we could get Trim, and Trim agreed. So actually, the very first song we ever made was Tucker, and with Trim from Emperor on drums. No, not very many people like that because know that because I never actually released it online like ever. So only the people who came to my exhibition heard that song, and it's also got Alex Skolnick doing a solo and Ralph Santala doing two solos, and Steve plays guitars and bass and vocals. And I actually ended up writing about a minute of the song in the middle of it. But at the time, I'm not a musician by any means, so I didn't even want to. But there was one part that we wanted it to be a certain way, and so I just wrote it, and we put it together with what Steve had written, and turned out to be pretty epic. It's actually that song was re-recorded by Steve and the other guys who are in the flesh. The song's called Soulless, but that other mix with Skolnick and Trim and Santala, that one was called Faceless, because that was the name of the exhibition. So when we changed it for the record, we changed a lot. We made it way faster. Also, the solos are in the flesh are by Tony Norman, who was in Terrorizer and Monstrosity. So it's like totally. I mean, you can almost say it's a totally different song because it's like it's almost twice as fast, you know, and just has different solos. And because it's twice as fast, also a lot of the lyrics had to be cut out because they didn't anymore.
Yeah.
Because that's how much faster it got, you know.
So the public ever going to hear this song?
I really don't know, man. It's like it's recorded under a really small budget, and I'm just not sure if I it just needs to be properly mixed and stuff. It worked for the gallery, but I don't know. Maybe I haven't really thought about it very much.
Wow, man. I mean, that's.
But sorry, just to get back to the rest of the question is that for example, like someone like Bobby Coble, like I met him at a Death to All show. I described to him the project, and he was really into it. Attila actually is probably one of the the kind of nicer stories because him and I met through some mutual friends, and it was almost like I wasn't sure if it was him or not. Like it was like Attila, but I didn't exactly know what he looked like. So
yeah,
but we had a good time. And then we started talking about art, and he started telling me that like not knowing that I'm an artist or anything, but we were just talking about masks and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I just mentioned it, I make masks and I make, I'm into that shit. And then he was like, oh, let me see something, and so I just showed him like a couple of things that I had done, and he was like, oh, like, hey, you want to do something for me? And I was like, yeah, man, that'd be fucking amazing, and so that's how that relationship started, in my opinion, he's one of like the coolest, one of the coolest dudes out there.
I got to play a show with Mayhem. I think it's 2008 or 2010, maybe 2010. And I just remember him and his stage guy in the back gluing garbage. I mean, they found a bag of garbage and they were gluing garbage to him with like rubber cement. It was unique.
Yeah. Is that in Japan?
Yeah. They came over to Japan, and like the year before, he was like sleeping on my guitarist's couch for like a week. It was weird.
Yeah. He comes to Egypt and will stay here by the weeks, and sometimes he'll bring his family with him. And,
oh yeah.
And he usually just stays over at my mom's house.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Him and my mom actually like became like really good friends, and like actually this year is the first time me and him are in Egypt at the same time, because every time he comes to Egypt, I was living in New York, so he'd just go to my mom's and hang out with her, and it's really cool.
Very cool.
It's just weird
yeah.
sometimes, like when I think about how like I was like 16 or 17 listening to the Mysteries Dump Satanas, and then in my bedroom, and then now it's like, oh yeah, that dude's like chilling with my mom. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Was your mom telling you to turn it down at the time? She's like, oh, shit's too loud.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, and now she's living with the guy.
Yeah, now she's like, oh yeah, when is Attila coming back?
Yeah.
It's like, what?
All right, we're gonna. Oh, go ahead.
With Glenn, like, with Glenn, I've been like, you can say I've been like chasing him for a while, man. but again, he's like really busy with D-side,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess he had just finished working with his Vital Remains, and I think I think he had just done a couple of years where he was doing two projects at the same time. You know what I mean? And I think he was kind of like, I don't, he was like the music's great, like, and like you're a good guy and stuff, but I just,
Yeah, kind of burnt out, right?
So it was really cool that when we decided that I won't be working with those other guys again. It was actually just a few days before that. Glenn had hit me up and he was like, "Hey, dude, like, I'd like to start doing some shit." And I was like, "Yo, let's fucking do it."
Right on.
And just a few days later, we started talking about like when I'm gonna go over to Florida and just be kind of direct the whole like phrasing, because I write all the phrasing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to I feel like I should be there to really explain how the phrasing is meant to be. And it's funny because all my phrasing it's totally based on like deicide, so it was kind of like, it was a little funny, like explaining to him something that it wasn't something he had done already, but like totally influenced by shit that he's done.
Yeah.
But it was also cool because he got comfortable like really fast. And what was even cooler is that he actually came up with like a bunch of really cool ideas. He was like, "Hey, what if we switch this word and put it in the back of the sentence, or how about we do it like this?" And Sukov was there too. He was recording him, Jason Sukov, and he would have suggestions too. So it was a really, really like collaborative effort with him. But it was also completely different from how I met Attila or Bobby or Trim, or each one of them. It just worked out, and there's some people things haven't worked out yet, but we're talking. It's not like I've asked some people and they're like, "Yeah, I want to do it." It's just give me some time. So when that happens, how the way I got in touch with Andreas Kisser was just through the label. I just emailed the CEO, I think, of Nuclear Blast, and because I already had his contacts from something else like years ago, and I was like, "Hey, if you can just pass this message to Andreas Kisser, I'd appreciate it." And he did, and Andreas replied to me, and he was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do it. When do you want to get started? Send me the songs." So yeah, it's cool.
Cool. All right, we're gonna get back into the music real quick. Let's listen to some of your stuff right now. We're gonna hear "Deformation" by Incision. What can you tell us about that song?
Oh man, I think this song is our most brutal song, man. It's and also one of the funnest songs to write. I actually came up with the opening riff, and then the other guys just kind of took it from there, and we just turned it into a whole song. And that song, it's like super Glenn Benton vocal patterns. I even told him like, this is just straight up from, kind of Once Upon the Cross, you know what I mean? But the version you have is actually Travis Ryan and on vocals, and he did a really good job. But I think there's something very staccato-ish about the vocals, and it's not like a bad or a good thing. It wasn't exactly what I had intended, but I wanted something a little more fluid. But I think the staccato style is like adds a little more brutality to it, and it's just sick. It's got Bobby Coble and Alex Webster plays bass on this song too.
Really?
From Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Bobby Coble from Death, and Alex Webster, Travis Ryan, Flo, and Blasphemer. And it's just like, it's like it was like the song that we were all like super happy with when we wrote it. It was just like, as soon as I heard how we were like completing it already, like the vocal lines were coming into my head, and that hasn't really happened so easily with any of the other songs. And I think as a result, like it's also like our most brutal song. It's just, at first it seems really straightforward, but the more you listen to it, the more you realize it's a really fucked up song. It's really layered and just really weird, actually, but very brutal. Definitely our most brutal song.
All right, what song do you want to play after that?
Petrophilia.
All right. So, what can you tell us about Petrophilia?
Petrophilia. Well, the process for that one was also pretty interesting. I actually wrote it on a keyboard, and I played it to. I'm not a musician, but like when you have a keyboard and a way to record, you can always just touch the keys, and there's a melody in your head. You can sort of like by touching each key, figuring out like what key you want to press, before or after. You know what I mean? So I sort of figured it out on keyboard, and I sent it to Blasphemer, and he played it on guitar, and like then he started like messing around with it and rearranging it a little bit, and and then we it was sick. I think Tucker did a really cool job with the vocals. He actually came up with the vocal pattern. So like all the songs I choose are all usually end up being the ones where like we all collaborated. There's some songs where only one guy wrote it, and you can kind of tell. But the coolest songs are the ones where like we all work together on like making the whole thing.
All right, and then after Petrophilia, we're gonna go into Nigredo in Necromance.
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
Nigredo is like the one song I wrote it on guitar from start to finish, like the bass line and the harmonies. And it was a result of we had a contract with the label that there would be like this many songs, but Tucker I think was having like some personal problems, and Ruin didn't really have time to contribute one more song. Like he had just like worked on Petrophilia and another song called Sulfur. So I was a little stressed out, and Mayhem's guitarist Chalky, who I toured with Mayhem in 2009.
Dude, he's my old guitarist.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, dude. Chalky, me and Chalky played in Detroit together. That's how we got hooked up with the Mayhem show. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Small world, man.
Yeah, Chalky's awesome, man.
He is a good guy.
Actually, bumped into him in California Death Fest, and he didn't want to take his guitar back with him to France, so he left his with me. So I was like, fuck, I have to come up with a song.
And it's a nice guitar, dude.
Yeah. It was like he had bought it. He bought it like in the States actually, for the tour, and he just played with it for the tour. And then he was just like, I used his guitar to write Nigredo.
Oh.
He doesn't actually play. He hasn't played with me yet. We were talking about doing some live shows together sometime, but we haven't done anything together outside of the stage design that I was doing in 2009 for Mayhem. Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna hear Deformation by Incision, Petrophilia, and Nigredo and Necromance.
Return
Alright, you just heard Deformation by Incision, Petrophilia and Nigredo and Necromance by Nader Sadek, the guy who I'm talking to today. Now, real quick, we got to do a little self-promo right now. If people want to contact us for future guests or future songs or future requests, you can do so by contacting us at visualjusticefilms@gmail.com. Nader, how can people contact you?
The best way is just Facebook. People can send me a message there. People can send also a message to the project's Facebook page, which is facebook.com/natterflesh, and that's the project page. And then there's my personal page, which you can also reach me at.
What kind of upcoming projects do you have?
Well, re-recording Malefic Chapter 3. Already recorded the vocals. We re-recorded the drums with Derek Roddy. The production's just going to be, I'm going to really take my time with like getting it mixed. Just do things a little slower, just to not make it as rushed in the process. And so it's going to be with Glenn Benton, Derek Roddy, Attila's on it. I'm saying this for the first time, but some dude, I'm not going to say who, from Bloodbath is going to be in it. It's really going to be sick. Also, Seth from Severe Torture is going to be. He's a drummer of Severe Torture, but he sang with me before, and he's an amazing singer. Actually, Peter from Vader got him to do vocals on the Vader 20th anniversary album, where they re-recorded their own songs, and they actually got Seth to sing for Peter. That's pretty badass. I think he's like an amazing vocalist. His name is Seth Vandeloo. He's on it too. It's just sick, man. It's like, Christian Minsner from Necrophagus is on it too. He plays some solos. I mean, it's just like definitely the coolest shit that, I've ever come up with. As far as like lineup and just the music and just everything about it I'm really fucking happy with. So that's coming out, and then it's actually 3 EPs. I'm considering just making it all one album, like one 12-song album. I'm not sure yet how it's going to be released, but in the meantime, I'm just going to be doing live shows. Love to come to Japan, of course. And otherwise, I'm just working on my own artwork and artwork for the release.
Right on, man. Well, Japan wants you here. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now for something completely different. You chose Merzbow. Totally different from from all the other songs we've been playing. Where'd you come up with that?
It's funny. I actually just witnessed Merzbow once, and at a bar in New York called St. Vitus. It's like where all the metal shows happen in New York now. And it was just like completely mind blowing. And then I went and like did some research on it. And it turns out the dude's been doing this since I think like the late 70s. The main Merzbow dude, but also he was working with a Hungarian drummer called Balázs Pundi, who's been like literally in every band in the world. I mean, he's just like the drummer for hire for whenever anyone's like stuck without a drummer. Then he's just like the go-to dude. And I had met him through a friend of Attila's, and he invited me to the show. And it was just, a complete shock. I had no idea what it was, but I thought it was really fucking amazing. And just, it's so free and just, surprising, unexpected. Just sometimes it gets groovy, but then just it's goes to being just noise, and and I thought that was really cool.
Cool. Well, Nader, thank you very, very, very much for being on our show tonight.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. All right.
Same here, man.
Thank you. Well, to finish off the show, we got Merzbow, Woodpecker, number 1.